I'll take biology's biggest questions for 500, please. Every organism possesses it, every biologist studies it, yet no single definition satisfies everyone. What is life? You got it. Now let's talk about it. It's kind of a tough question. Maybe if I show you something, telling me if it's alive or not is easy. This rock. It's not alive. No debate about that. This cow. Assuming I'm not checking price per pound, of course it's alive. How about fire? Fire grows, consumes energy, it can even create more fire. Is fire alive? Maybe figuratively, but not literally. What about this virus? It's not as intuitive. Scientists still debate it to this day, even. It's definitely more alive than that rock or fire, though. Now, the scary one. What about artificial intelligence? What needs to happen for us to flee in terror, screaming, "It's alive! It's alive!" So, what actually is life? Seems like it should have a simple answer. But despite thousands of years of philosophy and centuries of scientific research, there still isn't a single definition that everyone agrees upon. It's an important question to consider. If we discover something abnormal on another planet, how would we know if it's considered alive? And if the very first cells evolved from simpler chemical systems, where do we draw the line between non-living chemistry and the first living organism? Understanding what biologists mean by life also influences medicine, ethics, and public policy. Rather than relying on one perfect definition, biologists usually describe life using a collection of characteristics. Individually, none of them are enough, but together, they paint a clearer picture of what it means to be alive. Let's start with one of the most fundamental characteristics of life: organization. Every living thing we've ever discovered, from the bacteria living in the soil beneath your feet to the blue whale swimming in the ocean, it's all built from one or more cells. This idea is so fundamental to biology that it has become one of its founding principles: cell theory. Cell theory tells us three things. Every living organism is made of one or more cells. The cell is the basic unit of life, and every new cell comes from another cell before it. Knowing what life is made of only tells part of the story. We also have to ask how those cells stay alive. Metabolism. Every heartbeat, every thought, and every step you take requires energy. Even while you're asleep, your body is constantly using energy just to keep you alive. That energy has to come from somewhere. Plants capture it from sunlight, animals get it by eating other organisms, and some bacteria even get it from chemicals deep beneath the Earth's surface. No matter where it comes from, every living thing has to take in energy and use it to power the countless chemical reactions happening inside its cells. But fire uses energy too. It grows when you give it more fuel. So what's the difference? Fire doesn't manage energy. It simply releases it until there's nothing left to burn. Living organisms are different. They use energy to build themselves, repair damage, grow, and reproduce. One of the biggest uses of that energy is keeping the conditions inside themselves remarkably stable, even while the world around them is constantly changing. This characteristic is called homeostasis. Cells can only work within certain conditions. Humans, for example, have a set point of 37 degrees Celsius. That's more like it. But why does temperature matter at all? Your cells are powered by enzymes, which are proteins that speed up or catalyze chemical reactions. Those enzymes work best within a fairly narrow temperature range. If you're too cold, those reactions slow down. If you get too hot, many proteins begin to lose their shape and stop functioning properly. That's why even a fever of just a few degrees can make you feel incredibly sick. As a result, your body spends energy keeping its temperature near the range where those reactions work efficiently. Humans sweat, other mammals pant, reptiles seek shade, and plants transpire, a process similar to sweating. Temperature is just one example. Your body is constantly regulating water, salt, blood sugar, pH, and dozens of other variables, all without you ever thinking about them. Most of the time, you never notice homeostasis because it's working exactly as it should. It's often only when those systems begin to fail that you realize just how important they are. Once an organism has a stable internal environment, it can do more than simply survive. It can change. Growth and development. When biologists talk about growth, they don't just mean getting bigger. Living things don't just grow, they develop too. A seed planted into the ground doesn't turn into a bigger seed. It grows roots, pushes its stem towards the surface, and eventually produces leaves. A tadpole doesn't simply become a larger tadpole, it becomes a frog. And a caterpillar doesn't simply become a larger caterpillar, it becomes a butterfly. Every human you've ever met began as a single fertilized cell, one of the most remarkable transformations in all of biology, but maybe we're just biased. But how do these organisms know what to do? No seed was ever told that it's supposed to grow its roots before its leaves. It just knows. How does a human cell know whether to become skin, muscle, or part of your brain? The answer lies in genetic information stored inside every cell, the topic of our next video. Growth and development explains how organisms change over time. What happens when the world around them changes? Response to stimuli. No matter how simple or complex an organism is, it constantly gathers information from its surroundings. When an organism detects a change in its environment, it responds, sometimes by changing its behavior, other times by changing what's happening inside its body. For example, touch a hot stove. You instinctively pull your hand away. That's a behavioral response. Walk into bright sunlight. Your pupils become smaller without you ever thinking about it. That's a physiological response. You don't need a brain or nervous system to respond to the environment either. A plant detects sunlight and grows towards it. Its roots go downward and seek out water beneath the soil. Even single-celled bacteria can detect nutrients in their environment and swim toward them. These responses help organisms survive. Eventually, every organism reaches the end of its life, yet life itself continues. Reproduction. One of the defining characteristics of life is the ability to pass on genetic information to the next generation. That doesn't mean every individual organism must reproduce. Mules, for example, are sterile. Most worker ants never reproduce. Even many humans never have children. They are still unquestionably alive. An individual can live a complete life without ever reproducing. A species cannot. What happens to this genetic information over millions of generations? Evolution. Life is not static. Over many generations, populations change. Evolution is not about dramatic changes overnight. It's about tiny, inherited changes accumulating over an immense period of time. The lions, giraffes, and elephants at the zoo will look essentially the same throughout your lifetime. Your lifetime might last around 80 years. Evolution has had roughly 3.5 billion years to work with. Not all organisms evolve at the same pace. Bacteria can reproduce in a matter of minutes or hours, allowing scientists to observe evolution over years instead of millions of years. That's one reason antibiotic-resistant bacteria have become such a challenge in modern medicine. We're only scratching the surface here. Evolution is far too important and far too interesting to fit into a single section of this video. For now, it's enough to know that life changes over generations. Why it changes, how those changes accumulate, and how we know evolution happens are all questions deserving of their own discussion. We'll explore them in a future video. So, what is life? Organization, metabolism, homeostasis, growth and development, response to stimuli, reproduction, and evolution. Together, they describe every living organism we've ever discovered. As we continue exploring our universe, and perhaps one day discover life beyond Earth, that description may continue to evolve. And I think that's one of the most fascinating parts of science. We are always learning, we are always refining, and we are always trying to better understand the world around us. Stay curious.